The policy meeting for March 22nd, our policy review committee. Do we need to do roll call? No? Okay. We have a guest. We have a guest?
No, this is Amy for the first one.
Amy without a mask.
Okay.
Oh, that is true, though. Get to see the full face.
I did not know you. Yeah. Okay.
I did not know you.
Well, when you see people's whole face, okay, then you can go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Well, good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
How are you? I've got some policies to bring forward. The first one is service animals in the schools, policy number 535. This policy is a brand new policy to the Burnsville-Eagan-Savage School District. So it was pulled from MASBA, pulled from there, and taken into consideration some of the things that we had discussed, I think, with Stephanie White previously. So I guess one of the main things is that one of the questions that came up was to remove small horse from it at the previous, when it was previously brought up, I think. And so I just kind of want to, let you know that, in doing my research for it, small horse is not part of the ADA, animals, service animals there. It is not there. However, it is in the MDH wording as well as our MDE wording. And so I'm going to leave that up to the committee, if you guys want to go ahead and put that in there, or if you're okay leaving that out still. Okay? The other thing that I would like to bring forward or kind of put your eyes on, because we're going to be talking about another one, animals in the schools. And so if you bring your eyes to number 10, that is where non-service animals for students at individual education plans, that is addressed in the 535 here, as well as the non-service animals as an accommodation for employees. Those are both addressed here in the 535 one. So we can talk, when we get to 799, I'll address that too. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
For the service animals in school.
Yeah.
You said MDE has what?
So MDE and MDH, they have this policy. They have something for, not so much students. It's part of the Disabilities
Sure.
Act or whatever.
Yes.
They do have small horse written in as a possibility for a service animal in a school. And so it's part of theirs. Now, I think that we can determine if we want to put that in our policy as well. So it doesn't matter. But it is not part of the American Disabilities Act. That is more of a, the bigger, broader one.
Yes.
It was Minnesota put in small horses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had questions.
Yes.
A couple questions. Top of the page, 535-3.
Okay, yep.
4D. How do we know that the animal has been trained, is housebroken? Is this standard statute language? It is.
We're not allowed to ask those questions. We're just supposed to be able to provide that information. So it is one of the requirements, but there's no way to know if it is or not. So
Until we know that it's not. Got
yeah.
it. Okay.
And there would really be no way to know that. I mean, the animal has to provide a task, and so there would really be no way to know that either in the event that this comes, because we're not allowed to ask those questions. But we would be observing, and we would be able to know if the animal was providing a task due to the disability. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then bottom of the page, 535-3.
Yep.
6A. Just looking to see what the question was. I guess it's probably a similar answer as far as Okay, students with a disability seeking to be accompanied by a service animal are requested to submit the approval request form to the building principal of the school. Requested, not required?
I guess this is what, I guess that would be up to you. So the form is not attached to it. Did you? Or is that? Okay.
Yeah, so the statute, it says requested. It doesn't
Yeah,
say
the statute
required.
says requested.
It doesn't say required.
Is there anything, would there be any, anything prohibiting us from requiring it? Or is that fall in that same ballpark of?
You know, I can check with our lawyers to find that out. I think it would be pretty specific. They would probably have, I know that we had a situation earlier in the year, and that our lawyers did say that we were not allowed to require or to request or, you know, to demand that we see that this animal's vaccinated or anything like that. So it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Well, and given the way this policy is written, I wouldn't want to spend attorney fees to confirm that it
Okay.
can only be requested. I mean, if this is your best recommendation for how the policy should be, then I can go with that.
Okay.
Horses you already covered. I guess the next one is more of a philosophical question, 535 dash 5. L?
L?
L, maybe there's a typo. L? Yeah, there's no L. 535, 5. It's language around fear that,
Oh, allergies, fear of animals?
right,
Yep.
is not,
Which one is
I just wonder about someone who is traumatized by, for example, service animals often are dogs. How do we handle a situation if a student was traumatized by a dog and is in the presence of a service animal that happens to be a dog?
Well, one of the ways that we can get around that is by scheduling students differently so that they wouldn't be around there. You know, when I think of, you know, like the middle school or high school, it's a little bit easier that way because they've got multiple, you know, classes. In the elementary, it would be more difficult. It would kind of depend, you know, how many fourth grade classes we have if the student is a fourth grader. And then, you know, if a student is special needs, you know, what that schedule looks like for the student that would have, you know, been traumatized. We would have to really take a look at that as a system and see how we could schedule that to keep both parties safe.
So you're saying that we would do our best to accommodate both? Okay.
I did have a question on this topic specifically, if I can add on.
Yeah.
Abigail. So in regarding the fear of animals, we all understand it could be also a religious purpose too. Are we involving our cultural liaisons to kind of be aware of if another student does have a service dog or a service animal, to be able to coordinate that that for a student that might be prohibited by religion, culture, whatever the case might be, about this?
I think that we would use all of our resources in a situation like that. You know, I know that that was one that did come up earlier, and we were just looking at changing the schedule for the students. That's how the lawyers addressed it with us, because it isn't considered a life-threatening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So, but we want to
there's
definitely
that
work with the
religion
community
piece of-
for
yeah,
sure.
in there, yeah.
We would use all of our resources.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Can you clarify that? The religious piece?
Yeah,
For
so-
service animals?
Yeah, so there are religions such as Muslims who are not able to be around dogs due to just what the religion calls for, as far for dogs being unclean and things like that, and they are praying 5 times a day, and they may have to make sure that they're able to pray clean. And being around a dog could break that Clint's.
Thank you.
And then my last question in this policy, middle of the page, 535-5. It's about the staff bringing an animal. If an employee seeks to bring an animal onto school property that is not a service animal, the request shall be referred to the superintendent or the administrator designated to handle such requests. In policy, this seems like it's more vague in terms of the administrator. How is it codified at the building or program level? Do we need to specify, the building
Principal, maybe?
a principal or, for a program, the director of the program?
Yep. We can be more specific for that. That's very much, okay.
And that was all I had.
Just have one more thing to add.
Abigail, did you see that anywhere else? Did you notice that anywhere else that we wanted to be more specific on?
I
Okay.
didn't know.
Okay.
And Amy, I'm just curious, how are we seeing more of this lately? Because I know with the whole traumatic COVID and things like that, a lot of people are choosing to find ways to deal with the mental health, and one of them being having a service animal. So I'm just wondering, any uptick on that in requests, or have you been hearing anything?
So I am hearing about it in other districts. We just had, that I'm aware of, we just had the one situation where we allowed the service animal into the building.
Okay.
And so that's where it was. So right now, in Burnsville, not so much.
Okay. Well, I think you brought this up at a great time, so thank you for
Yeah, you're
allowing us to
welcome.
discuss it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And the one situation you had, what grade level was that?
High school. Yep, high school.
Okay, just a couple of comments I had. One was the same. Excuse me. Was the same about the comment on allergies of other children. What would you do to accommodate the other child? But we covered that. So the other one was, from my experience, most service animals, or just about all have that little working jacket or uniform saying that they are a certified service animal. So is that something we can't even require that? I mean, we just have to.
Yeah, I guess those are questions that we're not allowed to ask. So, I would say if the handler can handle the dog and the dog is doing a task, then the dog would be considered a service animal. So,
Okay. That was all I had.
all right.
So the question is too, then, are we gonna, we have to decide if we wanna just have it include horse, miniature horse, or,
Small horse, is it?
I don't see any point in adding
yeah.
horses,
right,
but-
or just leave it up?
Yeah, I don't see a
Have
point.
it the
in
way it is.
It isn't part of ADA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree to have it without the horse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so it looks like we're all in agreement on that.
Okay, so then just the change to principal in that one area?
Yes.
And or program director depending.
Okay.
She just wanted more specific, okay.
Okay.
So is that gonna come back for review then? Or not necessarily?
I don't believe, it's pretty straightforward, a pretty simple change,
Okay,
probably first reading though.
okay.
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 Okay, good. So we do have a policy in with 799 with animals in the school, and this policy addressed service animals, and it also addressed non-service animals as companions. And so with the adoption of 535, we can amend 799 to really only have the visiting animals in the school or classroom animals that serve an educational purpose. And so there would be no changes to that one either. The only thing that I would add that I did not get added for your guys' view is that the cross-reference to cross-reference 535 with this one as well would be a suggestion that I did not get in the notes.
Oh, does say it's cross-referenced, though.
Oh, it does, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is there. We
Oh, they
added
put it in
We
order.
added it.
Because I thought it was written there, but I saw 608. I didn't see 535 down there, so good.
And I
Well,
think
see,
just
there it is.
technically, well, we might want to hold 799 until 535 goes through.
Good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, are we?
I just have one,
Oh, sure, sorry.
I guess, question, comment on the animal bites that's on there. Is that, it says if an animal bite or other injury to person occurs, first aid is necessary, blah, blah, blah. But is that like happening, I'm guessing, inside our buildings? If that were to happen inside of our buildings, outside parking lot, a parent picking up their child and they brought their dog to pick up their child, what is our legality and all that?
That I don't know,
Okay.
what our legality would be. If a parent brings a dog and happens to have it out there and
Yeah,
bites us.
like during pickup.
We allow
During
them,
pickup, yeah.
But it's their personal, help, so we can ask the lawyers,
Yeah.
because we're allowing it.
Yep, and it's our premises. Only because I've seen it
Okay,
when I'm picking up my kids at school. And so I was just, it just comes through my mind all the time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't have any questions.
Okay. And I didn't either. I was glad that it was shortened to fit 535.
The last one I
Concise.
have, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I was just saying concise. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, the last one is 532, use of peace officers in a crisis team to remove students with IEPs from school grounds. As you can see, what I did is I added in, the suggestion is I added in with an IEP after student, since this policy specifically addresses students with IEPs. And so again, following MASBA, what they have in their policy. And actually, a lot of policies, when I looked at some surrounding districts, they all had students with an IEP in there. And so I added that back in for you to review and to consider. And then the other minor changes, I think in this one, there were some his and hers that I moved to there, if I'm not mistaken, on this one. Maybe not, maybe that was service animals.
In the statute.
Yeah. So other than that, this one did not change very much either, other than adding with an IEP
In the statute.
in the statutes. Yes, thank you.
I like the addition. I thought it made sense and makes it really clear in policy that we're talking about students with an IEP.
IEP, perfect, yep.
I thought it was kind of singling them out, but as I kept reading the whole policy, it made sense to do that, to be more specific. Any other comments before I go?
Nope, I'm good on this piece. No comment.
Okay. And I just had a comment about, and I guess I forgot to write down which part, but it was about the contacting the parents. It did say to contact the parents farther down. Oh, I wish I had written this down. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, I was writing notes, but I didn't write down the exact letter and number. But anyway, about contacting the parents before they remove them. It's kind of way, let's see, it's
Is
way
it
down
D?
instead of,
Is it D?
532 for,
yeah, we're talking, yeah, 532. We're talking about, when, let's see, at the beginning, where it's mentioning all the different
Oh.
reasons why they should, why they have the right and reasonable, with reasonable force to remove the child, but it didn't say anything about contacting the parents until you got to like the last paragraph before the end. And I was just a little concerned about that, because it seems to me that that should be one of the second things you do, would be to isolate the child and contact the parents and then go from there. But.
is this in that order? In the order of,
In order, but
I
it just
guess I
seems
wish
like.
I knew where you
Yeah, I do too, so never,
So
you know
it's
what,
not
I'll
till
just have
D.
to.
It's D.
You notify after the removal.
Well, yeah, that's the parent
point is,
notification
Should it
where,
be a part of the first price
yeah,
by
should
the team?
be Yeah, it's D, but
Well,
I don't, I just. it
So
seems-
maybe under A,
Let me go back up there and look.
when measures fail, or when the crisis team determines that the behavior continues to endanger,
Yes.
teammate maybe notify the parent.
Yes, because that's crucial, especially for IEP students. I mean, and then I think it said that they would try, they didn't say the word try, but they would attempt to notify the parents. Well, at least that, just attempt to. I mean, you can't, I know parents aren't always available during the day if this should happen during school hours. I mean, well, when it happens during school hours, but you do need to attempt. And I think that's something that should be
Further
more
up?
prevalent, in the, I'm trying to see if I even want to put it in the, well. But anyway, it shouldn't be way at the bottom. It's like, and, okay, we're going to contact the parents. That's the way I read it.
So where were you thinking it would go?
That's a
Tony?
good question. I wish I had written that down when I was reading this. Means employer elected from official school, nursing pieces pursuant to an agreement. What about somewhere between C and D on 532?
532-3?
532-2.
Oh, 532-2, okay.
Yeah. Where it's the school resource officer and then the crisis team. Somewhere between there, I think a parent should be notified, or it should be, that statement of the whole notifying the parents should be moved up. That's just my opinion, because to me, that's very important, and I think that's something that shouldn't be at the bottom of the policy.
But you wouldn't put it in definitions.
Is that definitions? Let me see. Oh, yep, it sure is. Okay,
Yeah.
then, so then, nope, we wouldn't. We
Okay.
would put it in removal of students from school grounds, so it would be number 4. So
So
we
would you
could
put
be-
it like A, removal by crisis team? Or would you put it before that even? Would you make that A?
No,
I think
it's a
I'd make it
crisis
C from B, wouldn't you? I mean, does anyone agree with that? Because there's a A, a B, and we could add a C.
What were you going to say, Sue?
Oh, no, definitely, I would, like, Amy, you said, would that go before the crisis team? And I said, no, I think definitely the crisis team is something that we want to utilize right away.
Absolutely.
Yep, and I think, but it should go before reasonable force is permitted,
So it
which
should
is
go
C.
A, B, D, C? Okay.
I mean, if we're in agreement with that, I just,
I think it's a good point that you bring. I don't think none of the writing in there has something about contacting or notifying a parent or attempting. So it's good to have some sort of language in that piece.
I think so.
Yeah.
So it's me having a student at that one, at a time, and sometimes things could just be, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, things could be, I could get him under control without it blowing out of proportion, just by them contacting me, and I'm talking to my student
Right.
and my child. And then the only comment was, the reasonable force. Okay, what did I read there that was a little? Reasonable force when necessary under the circumstance. Okay, I'm just wondering, because it did mention about restraint of the student to prevent bodily harm or death to another. It just seems to me reasonable force is always putting children in handcuffs right away. They seem to, from so many incidents that I've seen and read and heard, that that's reasonable force to them. And I'm just wondering is that considered reasonable force? Because to me, that's a little bit excessive. I mean, it depends on what the child is doing, but if you're like escorting the child out, and they're calm and they're just walking out with, law enforcement all around them, I don't know if I think that that's reasonable if they have to be in handcuffs, or that's the first thing you do is put them in handcuffs.
So there is another statute that references peace officers and reasonable force, and they give a definition. I think it's very general, in a general situation. So we can look that up and bring that back to
Okay.
you.
Oh, I would love that.
Because there's separate statute about peace officers.
Because I've seen that over and over again, even
Reasonable
on
force.
when children were, when they're breaking up fights, and police officers are called in and they have to apprehend children, they throw them to the ground and put handcuffs on them. I mean, it's like, oh, they're on the ground and then you're talking to them and they've calmed down and the fight's over. Why do you have to handcuff them? And why do you have to slam them to the ground too? But anyway,
Well,
so
and
anyway.
I think we need to be clear
I-
about what you've seen outside of the district versus,
This is at a school, so
okay, but
things happen at schools.
I get that, but I also know that our current, and this is why we have policy, we need to have things codified so that the students are safe. But referencing a current event without specifying that it wasn't something that was witnessed in the high school or in one of our schools is kind of an important distinction to make, because people might misunderstand.
Misunderstand.
You haven't seen any students thrown to the ground in Burnsville or heard about it.
I guess a student in a school is a student in a school, no matter where it is. I can't, but that's
The
fine.
optics, I'm just talking about the optics, that, what we say up here makes a difference.
Okay.
And yes, we need to make sure our students are safe, but I also want to be careful that, there have been instances in the news and on social media where students have been thrown down and they have been handcuffed, not here in 191.
Oh, no, not that I've known in this district, no, it's clear. If you want to clarify that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we're bringing this one back, you said, Teresa, with more information?
We can bring, if you want to know about the reasonable that guides their actions.
I would like to know.
I think I would too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Know about
Okay.
reasonable force, what is their definition?
Thank you.
And that's the only two comments I had on that.
You. Ready for the next one? I have the next two. You ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I have the policy for 206, public participation in school. So we're adding some legal references because there was a change in statute. And there was a removal of the service manual, so that's no longer operational. So the pieces are on page, the changes are 20. I need my red line copy. 206-6, you'll see all the changes in statute. And also 206-7, the removal of the service manual.
Perfect. That one I have no comment on.
Yeah, I have no comment.
Either, it's MSB, so. MSBA.
Then the
Well, thank you,
second one
Amy.
is 211, criminal or civil action against school district, school board member, employee, or student. So the changes add clarity of the designations and distinction for board versus employees. So adding that distinction. And the spelling out, as stated in the statute for Minnesota and the U.S. Federal Code, and then adding some additional legal references, and then changing some language additions. So for example, under number one purpose, striking as to with about. And then you'll see number three under civil actions, spelling out the Minnesota statutes. And then the distinction, adding board member or employee and striking the he or she. And then we move on to B, similar, with an addition of striking out shall and adding a must. And then data practices, adding full statute spelling, adding the chapter 13. And there's the reference to the Federal United States Code. Once again, a distinction with employee and adding the word will. And then changing responsible to make sure it's clear that you're describing the authority as responsible. So adding the adjective. And then D, the service of subpoenas, just naming it's the school district, officers, employees. So a distinction there. And then if you go to 4, criminal charges or contact, 3, once again, spelling out the Minnesota statutes in the section, and then being very descriptive that it's the school board, and then the removal of as to. And then also under B, students, just a little language cleanup there, to promote rather than in order to further. And then continuing with just more cleaning up of language under criminal investigations. Once again, the statutes, and then D, data practices, same references to that US code. And then under legal references, adding those changes too, changes in statute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to MSBA.
Yep, yes.
They've been working hard.
They're working hard.
Yes.
We appreciate them.
We're-
I have no comment on this one, so.
Me either.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna switch here. Did I have one more? No, is it Stacy?
Yes.
Yes, Stacy. We're switching with Amy. Okay. That's it. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Minnesota Statute 260E. Remember that. The next three policies are all about Minnesota Statute 260E. The first one is actually the maltreatment, 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse. Again, they moved the statute from 226 over to 260E. And as a result, the MSBA went through, did some realignment of paragraphs, although there's a lot of red, a lot of cross-outs, a lot of underline. Really, fundamentally, all they're doing is moving paragraphs from one section, moving it over to another section. For example, on page 5, 414-3, a couple of those different sections are moved from page 7. The same thing on 414 on 2, under paragraph E, also just moving from one part of the policy to another. Using means, occurs when, which to that. Again, a lot of just redesigning the words a little bit and changing it up or movement. Substantially, there are no major changes to the policy. It's just, again, rewording it and aligning it with where the state has moved the statute language to. I'm moving forward the recommendations from MSBA. There isn't really anything here that has changed in our practice.
I just had one clarification, and I think I know the answer based on the other policies. Maltreated must be defined in statute, yes? Or maltreatment?
Well, I'm going to go with the maltreatment is defined under neglect, abuse. It's kind of the umbrella of a whole lot of different behaviors that occur.
Okay.
So when we go through this whole, what does neglect mean? What is accidental? Well, that's not really the thing. The neglect, page 7. Why don't I turn to page 7? Because that's mental injury, threatened injury, sexual abuse. Those are the different things, are the maltreatment. That's what's kind of.
I think that's very common. When I did child protection, we used that umbrella of child maltreatment, and then we had all the other things kind of hang out from it. So it's a very common way to, yeah.
Refer to it. And I
Refer
guess
to it,
my only
yes.
question is, I just found it interesting, and certainly not, a necessity of request for me, but just interesting that we don't define maltreatment in the policy, but it's used.
True.
I mean, we have the examples of it, which, and I guess, Stacy, you're fine with not defining maltreatment in the policy, otherwise you would have suggested it.
Well, what I would be limiting to would say maltreatment is threatened injury, physical injury, sexual abuse, the things that's already in the language. But it may be more than.
Right.
And so if I define maltreatment just as a certain thing, Even though those are kind of the examples of, if it's sexual abuse, do this, if it's this, do this. It may be a combination or something else where a person looks at that and says, you know what? There's something wrong here.
Yep.
And I'm going to report it to either the county or to MDE and let them sort it out. That's my job as a mandated reporter. And if I define maltreatment in policy to where a person goes and it's like, it's not really called out that way,
Yeah.
I don't want to go against policy.
Yeah.
Why limit ourselves?
Right.
Got it.
Makes
sense.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for that explanation.
I just thought it was very explicit and detailed. As I was reading through, I couldn't find anything that it left out that I questioned anyway.
And I'm sad to say, it's the type of statute that gets revised when something hits the headlines. And it's one of these things, well, nobody ever really thought somehow this would slip through the system. One of the recent updates, I think, to statute a few years ago was, how did this occur and either Pelsby or the Department of Ed wasn't notified? Even though criminal things may have been occurring with the local police authorities or whatever, there seemed to be this disconnect, or vice versa. It got reported to MDE, but it never came back into the criminal system as to actions being taken. I mean, it's just one of these things that evolves, unfortunately, when bad things happen that wasn't accounted for.
Leaving it as an umbrella gives that coverage, yeah.
As much as possible. And right now, this is where we're at. And hopefully it's comprehensive enough.
I think so, yes.
So with that, moving over to 423, employee-student relationships, again, we go back to the update of Chapter 260E. That's the only change, and because if there isn't an inappropriate relationship, the cross-reference, we want to make sure that we're following mandated reporting. And that's the only change that we have there.
I'm good with this one, yeah. I didn't catch any.
And then finally, 519, interviews of students by outside agencies. Again, we're back to Chapter 260E as far as the changes that are being reflected by MSBA. This is really, okay, so we make a report to MDE or to the county, then an agent of one of those agencies would come out and interviewing the student or the parents or the family who is allowed to be involved in that, who is not. We get this sometimes when we may have a staff member that, you know, whatever occurred, usually it's some type of misunderstanding, but we report it to the state, and then the state comes and says, well, we want to interview the staff member. And the staff member says, can my union be a part of this? And the state will come back and say, this isn't a bargaining issue. So they'll say no, you know, in those conditions. So it's that type of a thing, who's allowed to be a part of the interviews.
Oh, I'm sorry, did anyone have to click? Go ahead.
Yeah, and actually, I'm looking down, I think the order of the policies must have changed between the time that I reviewed them and tonight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of looking over that too, that's why I was, yeah. But yes.
And I guess, so with this one, and it also goes back to another one, the reference of child versus student is inconsistent, and I'm just wondering if we don't want to specify, starting with 519, that we're using the word student as opposed to child,
Yeah,
for consistency's sake.
I agree.
You see, it is.
519.2, interview the child on school district property, regarding the interview that may be part of the child's record.
Yeah.
I didn't put down which part it was in, but, oh, wait, I just caught it.
Specify.
Child, okay, it's under
Yes, it's a-
C.
Yeah, well,
C.
right above, it's still in B, isn't it?
It's probably also, I think it would be a find all and replace
Okay.
child with student.
Starting with,
Okay, so on page 16, if by the numbering, it's paragraph C under section 3 is one of the areas where you're seeing
Right.
child instead of student, and you want student to be used universally.
I was thinking so.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Agreed.
Statute. Is that verbatim from the statute?
Oh, well,
I don't know that. I didn't
Yeah.
cross-reference with it, because again, I was just looking at the change. But
They went
I
back
don't, I don't
and
see that
forth.
being significant.
Yeah.
I mean, student is,
Yeah, they do, because in
Mm-hmm.
two, it says students,
yep,
parents.
they're
Yeah.
using it interchangeably.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just looking for consistency in the policy.
Exactly. And also, going back to 532, was there were similar instances where student and child were used interchangeably, which we've already completed that policy, so I'm not going to, make a big deal out of it, but at least in 519.
Yep.
yes, because it's saying, under B too, 519-1, interview the child on school district property. It should be the student, because, I agree.
I think the only place that I might push back just a wee bit is if it's in reference to the relationship between the adult, being the parent guardian, you would still want it to be child. Not, it's not the guardian student, it's their child or parent's child.
True.
So I'd be careful on
That,
where it, the context of
Yeah, that makes a lot of
the,
sense.
Yep.
the context
Totally.
of
in that
that.
context,
Wanna
yeah.
check why they
And maybe
switched
that's why it
in
is.
Yeah,
statute.
maybe that is the way, maybe that's why it is that way.
Withdrawn.
And again, I mean, we can take a look, and if it seems to
grasp
fit, fine, but if it's
Totally.
in relation, a relational
To the-
component, you might want to leave it as child.
Sounds good, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You good?
Yes, we are.
Yes, you had any other comments? I don't either.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy.
And so that brings us to the last, so then, do I go over now and kind of just go what's consent and what's action and, okay. Help me if I'm doing it wrong, 'cause I'm not sure about this. I know I did it last time, but I'm not sure I used the right verbiage. Okay, so for, policy 535, the service animals, we're just consenting to that and, or no, actually, it's gonna be first reading, right? And then you're gonna get back to, yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna see if it's passed, and then, yeah, you're gonna get back to us on that, so, first reading. Okay, and then, and that goes along with the 799, so those are kind of grouped together. You're gonna get back to us on the comment about, I'm sorry, no, I'm ahead of myself. So, 535, 799, first reading.
But 799 after 535 is passed, because we have a reference to it.
Right, the other way
Okay.
around.
Thank
Yep,
you.
I said it backwards, yep.
Do you want it on the 14th or that would be the 28th, the 799? Would that be on April 28th? So it's like lagging a board meeting behind?
I guess so,
Let the first one go through, let the new policy go
yeah, yeah. Because we have to wait till the one goes through.
Okay.
I was going in the order that they were written, but yeah, one has to go through first, so.
535 has to
Okay.
pass second reading.
Thanks,
Yep.
Jamie. Okay, and then, for the peace officers, 532, that's gonna be a, first reading or action, excuse me, the action on that is, to move the, what did we, yeah, to move, more the little paragraph about contact the parent, where we discuss moving that.
Notify the parent.
Acceptable.
Yes, that was another one too, we were gonna,
Yeah, 532
So,
After we add the parent,
oh, okay, so that's an action, okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, yes, I'm sorry, 532 is going to be an action because we need more information about, well, we're going to change the parental contact part and also the reasonable force. We want a definition for
the
reasonable force.
statute.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
And,
Back.
do we, oh yeah, and 206. What did we miss 206? Public and school board?
And then my two.
Okay, so that one's consent. 211, criminal or civil, that's MSBA statute, so,
206 was consent.
oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Also 211, since that's a MSBA statute, that's consent.
Okay.
414, mandated reporting, is connected with, is cross-referenced with 260E, that's a MSBA statute, so consent.
Significant changes, significant additions to the policy would mean, even though it's coming from MSBA, that
With what
it would be
changes?
first.
Oh, it would be first read?
It would be first because of, even though.
It's coming from.
They added whole paragraph.
Right, adding full paragraphs is not, they're not insignificant changes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then that one is first reading then? Okay, so 414 is first reading. Now, just for my clarification, so it's from MSBA, it's their statute, they just kind of, isn't this the one where they move wording around? No, they added different things. They did add
it's-
different things, okay.
It's where the changes are non-substantive, like adding in statute or adding in a reference or maybe.
Cross-references.
Maybe cross-references or maybe grammar here or there, that's non-substantive and that can go consent.
Okay.
With something like this where we're adding in full paragraphs,
Okay, okay.
making those
Thank you
changes,
for
yeah.
clarifying that. Okay, so 414 is first reading.
That's
So
it.
correction on that. And that leads us to 423. That one was consent. And last but not least, 519. We have action on that one. What was the action? Why did I write down action? Oh, what did we?
I didn't have anything on that
I
one.
think it's consent.
It's consent.
Oh, okay. Maybe, I don't know why I wrote down action for that
I
one.
didn't
But
highlight
yeah.
that one.
Student versus child was.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, because of this, yes. I was like, well, why did we do that? Yeah, because of just changing that word, but we don't need to have it
No,
come
we're
back
just
with that.
gonna forget.
Got it. Okay, so consent on that, on 519. Thank you for your help.
You did awesome.
And thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Superintendent Battle. Oh, yes. So this adjourns the meeting, the policy meeting of March 22nd.
Oh,
That was a little loud. Whoa.